Democrats are still making the push for a sweeping social spending plan. But one item that was initially proposed was conspicuously absent. The plan does not include any negotiations to curb the rising cost of prescription drugs. For more on this, we're joined live on the KCBS Ring Central Newsline by Paul Siegert. He is managing partner at PCS Advisers, a California-based healthcare benefits firm. Thanks for your time this morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So remind us, what was the plan? What was in the social spending plan when it comes to prescription drug costs?
Well, there's been a lot of discussion for quite some time about allowing Medicare, the largest purchaser of drugs in the world, to negotiate prices on their own behalf. Instead of allowing pharmacy benefit managers to do that, those pharmacy benefit managers are supposed to look out for the interests of the consumer, but you don't have to be an expert in this field to see that hasn't really worked out that way.
So this would have allowed Medicare to negotiate with Big Pharma?
That's right, directly with manufacturers for the price of the drugs that they purchase.
Why is this no longer in the proposal?
Well, if you look at the members of Congress who are standing between it being a part of it or not, what happened was Biden came out and said that it's not included because they don't think they can get consensus. I mean, if you look at the list of members of Congress who are the ones blocking that consensus, and then you compare that to a list of those who get the largest contributions from Big Pharma, it's a dead match, really. So it's a case of lobbying being very successful, an industry that's very good at that, and they look at this as an existential threat to their business model.
So good old-fashioned lobbying has basically killed this in the final hours of negotiations. Is that more or less accurate?
Yeah, that's a fact. That's right. If you look at the top 10 recipients, it's pretty split. It's not, you don't have to be a Republican or a Democrat to get money from Big Pharma. They give it to anybody that's on a committee that could regulate what they're doing.
So where do we go from here? Is there a chance that this could be revived possibly as a separate proposal after these packages possibly get passed?
There is, and there are lawmakers that are continuing to push to even include it in future iterations of this framework as it gets hammered out. I think that's unlikely. They've managed to prevent this now for quite some time, and so I don't have a lot of optimism around that, but there are some who are trying.
Give us some idea of how expensive prescription drugs are in this country. I mean, a lot of people can attest to this, but what are some estimates for how much more expensive they are in the United States compared to other countries?
Yeah, here's a couple of numbers that are pretty eye-popping. The top 20 selling drugs right now, the drug companies, or not really drug companies, but Big Pharma, let's just call it, made over $100 billion selling those drugs to the American consumers. And then if you take those same top 20 drugs and you total up all international sales for those drugs, it was about half that. So clearly we are shouldering a much larger share of cost globally. I mean, the American consumer accounts for 70 or 80% of global profits for the pharmaceutical industry. And a lot of times they tell us that's because we need the money to fund research and development. But when you look at the industry and where the dollars go, a large portion of the dollars do not make it back to the manufacturers themselves. It's these pharmacy benefit managers that are middle players that add as much as 30 to 60% to the cost of prescriptions that we pay as consumers in this country.
All right, we will watch these packages to see if something happens again as it's being formulated. We've been talking with Paul Siegert. He is managing partner at PCS Advisers, a California-based healthcare benefits firm. Thanks for your time this morning.